You're tuned into 9 to 5 Work Rebels with your host, Ebony Gale. This podcast is sponsored by the PRCA's Race, Ethnicity and Equity Board. Visit prca.org.uk/REEB to find out more.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gems in Comms Series Special, brought to you by 9 to 5 Work Rebels podcast. I'm your host, Ebony Gale, and today I'm really excited to be speaking with Emmanuel Ofosu-Appiah, who is the Associate Director of Financial Services at Edelman, Smithfield, and he's also the Vice Chair of the PRCA Race, Ethnicity and Equity Board. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Thank you, Ebony. Great to be here, and really looking forward to having this discussion.
Well, thank you for joining me. And just as to give you a bit of a background, this podcast is basically about giving people of colour their flowers, who have carved out a great career for themselves within the PR and communications industry. So kudos to you. Well done to you.
Thank you very much.
No worries. So can we start off with you telling us a bit about yourself and what exactly it is that you do?
Yeah, so as you said, I'm an associate director at Edelman Smithfield. We're a global PR agency, but we specialize mainly in kind of the financial services and asset management and investment management space. So we work mainly with some of the biggest companies within the asset management and investment space. I joined Edelman Smithfield in June 2022, and prior to that, I was at Mercer. That's kind of like the UK public relations lead for Mercer, which is a kind of investment consultancy firm focused mainly on kind of the institutional space and pensions. And then prior to that, I was at KEC, another kind of global comms agency. And prior to that, I was at FTI Consulting. And prior to that, I was at Havas, and I started my career on the Bennett Foundation, which we can talk about later on. But pretty much at Edelman Smithfield, kind of working with clients across the board to support them with their kind of media relations, thought leadership, supporting their content, pushing their content out, also kind of working with their senior leaders to get them in the right places, the right kind of publications. We focus a lot on top tier firms, so we really want to kind of be getting their voices heard in the national press and the national business media as well, but also the trade media is very important to a lot of the clients that we work with because it speaks to their audience. So that's pretty much what I do. I'm focused a lot on, let's say, the institutional space and the pension space, just because that's my background coming from Mercer. But I've kind of also started to build more specialism within wider asset management as well. And I'm really enjoying the work that I'm doing at the moment. So yeah, it's great. It was a great move for me. And I'm very happy that I made the transition back to agency after being in-house, because as you know, a lot of people go in-house and they never go back to agency.
Yeah, so that's true. Yeah.
My career's been kind of a bit of a roller coaster because I've done agency, gone in-house for 3 years, and then now I've come back to agency at a senior level. So a lot of people would go in-house and then just stay in-house forever. But I've come back to the dark side, as they say.
Well, that's really interesting. So have you always wanted to work in like PR and communications? What attracted you to the industry?
I haven't always wanted to work in PR, and maybe I can talk about how I got into the industry. So I studied English language at Manchester University, and on our course we had a kind of career module where people would come in from different kind of backgrounds and different industries to talk to us about their careers. And had a nice lady coming from Havas PR. Back in the day, it was called Euro RSCG, BIS Lancaster. I'm not sure if you know, but that's what they were called before. Well, the UK arm of Havas was called BIS Lancaster.
Okay.
Was, I think, brought back Havas, and then it became Havas PR UK.
Right.
But I had a nice lady come in and talk about PR. She was talking about, working with all these brands, and she just really sold the career path to me. And I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to approach her after this session and basically kind of just show her that I'm interested in getting involved in public relations. And fast forward, I think a few months, in the summertime when we were breaking for uni, I got a short kind of 2-week internship working at Havas and working, directly with a lot of the clients, supporting them, selling in, doing a lot of pitching, getting the basics of PR, understanding the basics, putting together the media lists, doing the research, the briefing notes.
Yeah.
That kind of opened my eyes to what this career was all about, you know. I thought PR was about drinking champagne and
or ab fab life, right? When you see ab fab, you think it's that, but it's definitely not.
Yeah, meeting celebrities, going to all these red carpet shoots and stuff like that. I didn't realize there was the kind of, you know, campaigning side to it and building brand reputation and, you know, building a bit of credibility for some of these firms. So that's what I learned. And then after university, I was on Twitter and I came across the Taylor Bennett Foundation program, which, as you know, is a kind of 10-week, 3-month program that's focused specifically on ethnically diverse candidates from Black and Asian backgrounds.
Yeah.
And I was on Twitter one day and I thought, you know what? I've done a bit of internship in PR. I want to give this PR thing a real go. So I applied to the Taylor Bennett Foundation. And I got on to the kind of selection process where we had to go in and we were assessed by some of the Taylor Bennett staff, and we were interviewed by, you know, some of the kind of current alumni, and also some people from Brunswick who were also going to be running the program for that year. And, you know, thankfully I got into the program, and yeah, the rest is history, as they say. Like, I did that in 2012, and you know, really enjoyed the Taylor Bennett Foundation. You know, it really gave me an opportunity that I don't think I would have had going in cold with no experience. The fact that we were exposed to all these PR agencies, in-house teams from early on, it gave me a real understanding of what actually goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then, you know, as I say to everyone, I'm very thankful for programs like the Taylor Bennett, because without the Taylor Bennett, you know, I don't think a lot of people from, you know, Black and Asian backgrounds would even know what PR is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm very thankful to them for that program. And, you know, as I said, you know, it's been over 10 years now since I finished the program, and I'm still within PR and communications. So, you know, it's gone well so far.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So when you was at uni, what was you thinking to do then? Because obviously PR wasn't necessarily on your list. So what was you thinking when I left, and what was your original plan?
I didn't really have a plan. That's me being honest. Like, I just knew that I wanted to get a 2-1 because my mum was like, if you come home without a 2-1, I'm not going to be happy. So I knew I just had to come home with a decent grade. And if I got the 2-1, I could kind of go into whatever I wanted. But I was more interested in the sort of diplomatic kind of UN sort of work. But I kind of didn't have anyone within that field. And I didn't know how to get into that sort of diplomatic sort of work. So if I was to do another job, that's probably what I would do, like be an ambassador for some you know, some prime minister or some president or something in Africa.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, that's interesting.
Interesting because I get to do a lot of travel as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of moves into the kind of public affairs-y kind of space, which, you know, you're still communicating. So that's really interesting. It's interesting that you found out about PR through someone coming in and kind of doing a module. And I think that's an interesting theme on this podcast, because even myself, I kind of found out about PR by doing a module as well. But at my college, I used to go to Brit School, and we had like a marketing module, and I thought, oh, this is really interesting. And then I started going down that route, and then went and done a business communications degree, and then found out a bit more about PR, and then realized I actually want to go advertising route, because I thought advertising was real fun. But then when I started looking into it a bit better, I realized that, you know, the creative and the account side is all very separate. Whereas in PR, you get to be creative, but you also can manage your accounts and deal with the client side as well. So it was like, oh, this is a bit more of me. But I still think it's an interesting thing. PR has got to do more to PR itself to people so they understand it's a career path. But I know that Taylor Bennett Foundation are doing a great job in that space as well. So really interesting. That's just how you found out. So that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I always like to ask my guests, when did you become aware of your ethnicity? I'm not saying that you don't know you're a Black man, or I don't know that I'm a Black woman, but, you know, growing up, there are sometimes certain instances that kind of is like, you know, cold water thrown in your face moment where you're like, oh, okay. So for me, it was being 11 years old, heading off to secondary school, and then finding out about these Chelsea Smilers, and that they would come up to you if you're Black or brown, take a razor and cut you across your face. And they were known to like frequent certain areas, and I was heading into that kind of area from my school. So I remember just thinking like that was like a real wake up kind of, you know, sobering moment for a young 11-year-old to be like, okay, I know about racism, but this feels very directed and actually within, it could happen to me essentially, you know? So did you have any moments like that, or was it a bit more peaceful, what we'd hope?
Yeah, I have experienced racism, not in the workplace, but outside of the workplace. You know, it was probably when I was around 13, 14. years old. I think me and my friend were at a McDonald's, a local McDonald's, and we were literally just walking to the bus station after school, and a group of guys threw milkshake at us. Like they were in a van, like a builder's van or something like that. It was just a group of older men, to be honest. Like they were in their 30s. I don't know that we didn't know them from anywhere. They literally just thought it would be, a fun thing to do, to throw a milkshake at two young black schoolboys. And that's the first time I'd actually ever been in, like, racially, not attacked, but kind of some sort of harassment that I hadn't ever really experienced, because I'd gone to school, a mixed school all my life, a mixed primary school. I'd never really experienced any racism at school, or even during my primary school. So the fact that it happened outside of my school gates was quite shocking. And the fact that the men were a lot older than us was when I really became aware of it. That's probably the first time I'd really become aware of my ethnicity.
In that way.
Yeah, and also, talking about the PR industry as well, as you know, there's data out there. I don't have statistics to hand, but as you know, there's a very small proportion of black men within PR and communications, and I've not even looked into the financial and corporate side, but I think there's probably even a smaller percentage of black and Asian men in corporate and financial PR. So the reason why I'm so passionate about talking about this is because I feel that, a lot of the time when I went into, agencies, even during my time at the Taylor Bennett Foundation, I looked at the top of the chain and I never really saw anyone that looked like myself. And I was saying to myself, this is what's motivating me to want to succeed or do well in this industry. Because I can motivate someone else, who could potentially be, the younger version of me in a few years' time. So that's why I'm so passionate about, trying to succeed in PR. And when people talk about success, it's not about becoming head of a business or a CEO. It's more about getting into a position where your voice is heard and where you actually have a seat at the table to make some change. For me, that's what it is. And being able to contribute to things like the Taylor Bennett Foundation, the vice chair position I have at REEB, even supporting the 10,000 Black Interns program within my company, for me, shows that I'm doing something right, and I'm also trying to add value within all these organizations based on my experience as well.
Yeah, and that's important. Like you say, it's very important. And like you said, it is, the industry we know is about 91% white, and we don't know what that breakdown is in terms of, like you said, male, female ratio. We know there's a lot more women in the industry, but again, it's great to see that you are doing things and affecting change where you can, So speaking about work, have you ever felt like race or your ethnicity has held you back in your career? And have you ever maybe experienced or witnessed racism in the workplace? And if so, how was it handled?
No, I don't think my race has ever held me back. I've actually used it as an advantage for myself.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. As I know it's not the case for everyone, and there's definitely probably some horror stories that you've heard, which we probably don't want to go into today. But I know that, some people have experienced negative kind of experiences associated with their color, being in corporate and, let's say, public relations. But for me, I haven't ever experienced it.
That's refreshing, and that's great to hear as well,
Yeah, and I've always seen myself as a unique person. When I go into a room or I go into a meeting and I look around and I'm like, okay, I'm probably one of two or one of three people in the room that are from a different background. I feel like I've got a different perspective. There's certain issues that I can talk about that someone may not be able to really get into the kind of the weeds of. Whereas, let's talk about Black History Month. It's something that, I can personally associate with because I've experienced it. I've understood the reasoning behind Black history, some of the kind of issues that Black people have faced over the years. I can talk about it with confidence, whereas probably someone else from another ethnicity may not be able to. So for me, I feel like I always use my background and ethnicity as a positive. I always feel that I can add something different to a conversation. And sometimes it doesn't have to be different. I feel like I'm just as good as anyone else. My race shouldn't hold me back. My race shouldn't make me feel any less worthy of being in the room because, it's just the color of my skin. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't affect my ability to do my job.
Exactly.
I can also, talk about people from, Black and Asian backgrounds that are really doing great things in society as well. That also gives me the confidence to say, you know what, I can also be someone one day, So for me, I see it as a positive, and I've never really looked at it any other way, to be honest.
And not one day, right now, you are somebody. You're doing very well. You are trailblazing. So, you're doing a great thing. So, I think that's fair. And it's good to hear that you haven't necessarily experienced that within your own work experience and your trajectory within your career. That's great to hear. So you've not necessarily seen anything in the workplace that is giving you cause for concern. That's good to hear because, I've interviewed quite a lot of people and that's not necessarily the common theme all the time. Everyone's had their own experiences, which is why I love to have this podcast so we can share that it's not a monolith. We all have different experiences within this industry.
I definitely feel like if I can talk on some of the work we've been doing with the PRCA Race and Ethnicity Equity Board, we actually did do a study this year called Behind the Mask, which looked at some of the lived experiences of Black and Asian men within kind of communication. And touching on the point that you said, where you have heard of some stories, definitely when we did that research, some of the interviews and case studies that came out of that were quite, surprising. Some people had felt that they had been overlooked for promotion so many times. There was issues around some pay gap, discrepancies there. And, some people had also faced like things like microaggressions and stuff like that. So it's a lot of issues that came through in that report that I hadn't personally experienced, or maybe I had experienced it and I was just playing, blind. Maybe I was just trying to ignore some of it, So that experience of doing that research really showed me that, there still are some issues that need to be ironed out within our industry. And it was good to kind of get that feedback.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think, like you said, that report, I know a year or so ago, the UK Black Comms, they did a report as well. And it was interesting, the microaggressions that came up and some of the instances that some people were experiencing. But it's great to hear that it's not something that's common across for everyone. It's some experiences, but it still needs to be stamped out, So it's interesting. So because you haven't had that experience, my next question is usually, is there a time you've had to self-advocate or speak up on behalf of somebody else? That doesn't really apply for you because you've not really had to be in that instance. So we can move on to the next one, right? So my next question for you would be, how do you feel about code switching? Do you feel that we can lead with our authentic voices in the workplace, or will we be forever code switching? Because I feel like everyone kind of code switches. You're at home, you might be a bit more relaxed, a bit more, laid back. In the workplace, you might be a little bit more of the workplace you. I feel like that's kind of part and parcel, but some people feel like they can just be the authentic self. Depends where they are in the workplace. What are your thoughts?
I think for me, it comes with experience. The more experience you get within your field, I feel like you slowly become more of yourself and more authentic. I feel like probably when I started off in my career, I was looking around and, as you know, there's a lot of people from, very well-off backgrounds within PR. And sometimes you try to emulate, those people when you're very inexperienced and you're just trying to fit in. But as I've kind of gotten older and got more experience within the industry, I've realized that sometimes being your authentic self is what people want. And nobody wants to look around the room and see 10 of the same people. Everyone wants to be in the room with people that have different perspectives, different upbringings, different backgrounds, different experiences. And that's what I feel I've just tried to lean into now. I've just tried to be my authentic self. Any firm I've been in the last 5 years or so, I've just tried to be who I am. I like to make jokes here and there. I like to be, quite funny on email sometimes, even on kind of Teams messages. Sometimes within my team, I try to send a few cheeky messages here and there and just be myself. And sometimes people just want to just be associated with someone who's just human and someone that has emotion, that has empathy as well. And that's what I've tried to do over the last few years.
Yeah. No, thank you. So I know we touched on it slightly. I was going to say, when did you become aware of the colour bias within the PR and comms industry? Was that once you started kind of getting a bit more involved in the industry stuff, like the PRCA? Because for me, it was kind of similar. Obviously, you're in your own little bubble, usually working away. Is once I started doing more and getting involved with the CIPR and then getting appointed to the Women in PR board. And I just noticed just how biased it was, just seeing it at events. That was more what it was like, oh, wow, it really is biased. And then obviously seeing the industry reports. Was it kind of similar for yourself?
Definitely similar for me, like going to industry events and looking around and, I'm always like, oh, where's the other black guy in the room? Like, I'm kind of trying to pinpoint someone else. And so that was early on in my career. It's really, I wouldn't say like it's massively improved, but it has improved a lot from, a few years ago. I can go into a room now and see people that look like myself, black and Asian, men and women, which is great. And I definitely feel like the PR industry still has some way to go. And also, like, I think, getting involved more with the PRCA kind of work and doing some of these industry panels, seeing how engaged people are when I'm talking about, issues around race, makes me realize that people really realize that, there needs to be a change. Something needs to, there needs to be a kind of a progression from, seeing the same teams on pitch decks and, making sure that, whenever you're putting a team forward, there's some sort of diversity in place, not just for a tick box exercise, but just to show that, this is the team that we can bring forward just because it's authentically who we are as a business. I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because I have had some examples on this podcast of, agencies that have gotten accounts and then taken off their black person because that agency doesn't want to work with them or, things like that. So I think it's important that, you push in diversity and that you fully...
You actually live it as well.
And live it, Yeah, exactly that. And not just in a tokenistic way, like let's just put them there as the face, get them involved and make sure that they are fully immersed in what's happening as well. So yeah, I agree with you on that one. Yeah. And what are your thoughts on allyship and what does it mean for you? What's a good example of allyship to you?
When you say allyship, do you mean people within your organization?
It can be within or out. It depends on who your allies are, what you think a good ally is. For me, I look at it as, where those who are basically have your back, whether you're in the room or whether you're out the room, those who are really trying to push the change and trying to, for me, a good ally is someone who's actually trying to embed all the equity and will go to bat for you when you're not even in the room. Those who kind of reach out for you in a different way and go above and beyond, I say, rather than just saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna just repost this. They might go a little bit beyond that and be like, actually, I'm gonna help you find this person. I'm gonna connect you to that person. I don't know what your example is. So let me know.
Yeah, example of good allyship is giving you additional responsibility, taking on, new projects, new tasks. When I joined Edelman Smithfield, I had obviously done financial services for a while, but I really wanted to focus more on like the kind of nitty-gritty asset management, investment management, that sort of stuff. And, speaking with the leadership here, like they saw that passion for me to want to learn more about the industry. And the fact that, I'm able to kind of lead a few of these client accounts for me is a great example of allyship because, they've given me an opportunity to actually flex myself and show my skills. I've been here for a year and a half, touch wood, haven't lost my job yet. But, I've learned and I've made mistakes along the way as well. Like, I won't lie to you here and say it's been smooth sailing. I've made some mistakes along the way, even at my level.
But everyone makes mistakes. No one is infallible. Yeah. Like everyone, that's just part of life.
Yeah, and it's just great to work at a company where I feel like, everyone kind of supports each other. That's something that, I really, really value at Edelman. Like, it's not just a one-person show. Like, everyone just mucks in and gets involved, which is great. I've heard some stories of other agencies where it's like, senior people don't do any work or they get to a certain level and it's like, oh yeah, we're past that level of, writing a press release. Whereas, at Edelman, everyone kind of just writes a press release and just gets on with it, which is great. And
that's great.
It's a good example of allyship because it shows that, regardless of your level, you can still get involved.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. I think that's important to show. And like you said, just to clear anyone listening, if you make a mistake, it's fine. You learn from your mistakes. I would look at it them as lessons rather than mistakes because I feel like it's just part of our growth of journey. And no matter what level you get to, there's always gonna be something that can happen, and you might think, but you get it sorted out and you work through it, and that's the most important part. And you're showing that in yourself.
This podcast is sponsored by the PRCA's Race, Ethnicity and Equity Board. Visit prca.org.uk/REEB to find out more.
So what actually motivates you and what inspires you to keep going within the industry?
Oh, that's a good question. I think what motivates me is, I see a future where, we're going to see more diverse, like, heads of comms, I'm going to have more diverse clients I'm working with, and I think it's down to people like myself and others within the industry to keep motivating and encouraging people from ethnic backgrounds to consider communications and PR, because it's an area where I've realized that a lot of people don't really know what PR is, especially from ethnic backgrounds. So a lot of the time when I speak with junior or I'm mentoring someone, they're like, okay, what's this PR thing? What's it all about? Like, can I actually have a successful career in PR? And I think it's down to people like myself and others within the industry to just keep pushing barriers and just keep working hard to succeed in this industry, to show people that it actually is possible to do well. As you know, there's definitely been an exodus of, Black and Asian practitioners leaving the industry as well, because sometimes people feel like they hit a glass ceiling and they can't get past that. So I think it's down to the warriors that are still left to just keep, fighting and doing what's right to succeed in the industry, because I think that's the only way we're going to continue to motivate people to want to enter and to want to actually stay within this industry, because I think there's so much you can learn. I've learned so much over the past 11 years that I feel I can continually give back to someone. So if we had, another 100,000 of me doing this, it could really make a real change within our industry.
Yeah, I hear you on that, and you're right. There's some that people that do leave, but not all of them leave the industry. Some of them leave to set up their own businesses and start off in that way, and then they end up employing people and bringing young people on in that way as well. So as long as we're adding to the quotas, hopefully that's a great thing. And absolutely trying to shift and push change. Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you for that. And what would you say you found the most challenging so far on your journey?
This is me being honest now. It's me being transparent. I think every few years I would leave a company. Like every 2-3 years, I would be like, oh, I'm off now. See you later. I've done my 2 years here. I'm gone. I think the most challenging is staying within an organization and understanding the organization inside out. What makes that business tick? Understanding the priorities of the company. And I didn't leave companies just because I was unhappy. It was just, I think, a bit of impatience in my mind, because I was obviously aware of the fact that I wanted to do well within the industry, and I was like, I'm not patient. I didn't get that promotion, so let me just move on. Whereas now, I'm really trying to just keep my feet under the desk and just try to understand the business, understand what opportunities are there for me within this company.
Right.
Like, how can I do well within this firm? That's the way I'm looking at it now, and I feel like that's the only way you can really get into those kind of senior leadership positions. I feel like you can move every year or every 2 years, but you don't really understand the company. You don't really understand the culture. And I feel like you get a real flavor for what works when you stay somewhere for a while. So, I'm saying to myself, I want to just try and stay put and, do what I can to help the business grow. And that's what I'm focusing on now.
Okay. Well, I think that's really interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that. And then what is it that you say you'd want from an employer when you're looking for roles? What is it that you want from an employer? What makes a good working environment for you? And add into that, what does good DEI look like within that context?
Yeah, I think working for a grown-up organization where you're not clock watched, people should trust you to do the work that you say you're going to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Whether you leave at 4 o'clock or whether you leave at 10 or whether you leave at 8 o'clock, your organization should trust you to get the work done, and understand that everybody works in different ways. A lot of us have children. I have 2 children, and it's quite important that you're given that flexibility to work around your kind of schedule. And I think even COVID as well was a massive shift. I can't imagine going back to the office 5 days a week. that's just me being honest now. Put my hands
Yeah,
up.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel like that, and I don't think that you have to do that anymore because, like you said, COVID proved that you do not have to be glued to your desk and in the office. You can work from anywhere. With our jobs, in terms of working in PR, you don't have to be glued to a desk in the first place. You can be on the phone. You can work literally anywhere. It's a lot of ours is communication, so you don't always have to be there.
Yeah, and I feel like it's crazy to think back when I was going into the office 5 days a week, and it was just like a mandatory rule. You have to be in the office 5 days a week. Whereas now, I would find it absolutely impossible to go in 5 days straight because my life has shifted so much from when we were going in 5 days a week to now. Like, sometimes I go to events at lunchtime or after work, and I can fit that around my day. I do stuff like this. I do interviews, panel sessions, and I'm starting to like build a bit of my own personal routine. And I just don't feel that if you work I personally don't feel that I could work at a place that required me to come in every single day of the week. And having flexibility for me is really important right now at this stage of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's your setup now? Do you work like maybe 3 days at home, 2 days in the office? Is that how they do it?
It's probably 2-3 days in the office and then the other days at home.
At home. Okay. Well, that's good. At least you've got a good work balance. That's really important for you. That's good. And what does good DEI look like to you in the workplace?
I think good DEI is also, just looking at your current employees, and also looking at your leadership and understanding, are these really the best people for this company? Have we put the right people in the right positions? So I think it's something that a lot of PR firms are taking seriously. A lot of agencies are taking seriously as well. And it's not always at the leadership level. It's also at the kind of entry level as well. Making sure that, you're speaking to diverse candidates as part of your recruitment process, making sure that, they're also being given equal opportunities in the interview process. There's no kind of favoritism whatsoever. Everyone is kind of given equal opportunity to enter the industry and also succeed within the company. I think for me, that's very important. And also trying to weed out all these things like racism, negativity around color or any sort of bias, just trying to weed that out of your organization. I think for me, that's very important. And if you do spot it as an organization, being able to call it out when you spot it as well, like ensuring that, your employees who are from diverse backgrounds feel safe within that organization, to feel that, if something is happening, that they will be looked after as well. I think that's very important.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. Thank you for that. Now I want to move a little bit into your proudest moments. So can you tell us about your proudest moment? It can be work, can be personal, and you can include a career highlight as well. So go for it.
Wow, talking of proudest moments, I think the most proudest moment for me, I think, would be last week. Actually, I won the PRCA Industry Trailblazer Award.
Amazing.
At the PRCA Awards, and it was for my outstanding contribution to the industry for me, which blew me away. Not because of the award, but it was because I hadn't actually entered myself for anything. So I was nominated by some peers in my industry to win this award, and it was just amazing to look back on my career, thinking back to when I started off as an intern with no experience in the Taylor Bennett Foundation, to now being given an Industry Trailblazer Award in 2023. For me, it just like blew my mind to think, look how far I've come. But it also made me proud of, my journey, because I haven't given up. I've continued to talk about things I'm passionate about, diversity and inclusion. I've continued to try to succeed in my job and do well at my day job as well, and, provide an excellent service to clients, and also mentor and help people enter the industry. So it's all kind of just come together now, and I was really proud to receive that award in front of a lot of very respected people in the audience, which is great.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, congratulations on that, and well deserved on that as well. So that's great. That is a wonderful, proud achievement, and you should definitely be very happy with that. Because, like you said, your start, you would never have thought that you'd be here now. Look what you're doing. Look what you've been recognised for what you're doing. And, keep doing what you're doing. I think that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So what are your thoughts on how the industry will evolve over the next few years? Because, you've got AI, things like that are making things different. DEI seems to be dwindling a bit on some people's radars, and, things are changing a little bit. So what are your thoughts around that?
I think obviously the whole digital element of I think as you can see, a lot of print publications are kind of like either disappearing or not doing as well as they once did. So a lot of the focus now is on like the online media and like online news. I think that's going to just continue to grow and get even more important for us as PR practitioners, and also for the clients that we work for, ensuring that, we're getting them in the right sorts of publications. I think also the way we kind of track some of the metrics is going to be impacted by the whole AI developing landscape as well, and also the way, we kind of monitor coverage. There's so many tools now out there that, are monitoring coverage. There's Signal, there's so many names. And I feel like there's just going to be more and more of these things. So it's actually up to us as PR people to understand how these tools and platforms work, because, it's going to be our clients that are going to be asking us, to use these tools, and we need to know how to use them. So it's just about getting up to speed, not seeing a platform and just kind of pushing it to one side, actually trying to understand, how does this platform work? How can I really engage with it? How can I work with it? How can I better understand it? That's something that I'm trying to do. And just being more savvy digitally as well. Like, LinkedIn is becoming like another news kind of publication. Like there's, the government are now hosting live streams on LinkedIn. And I think that platform is just going to become even more powerful for professionals across, the world, not even just in PR, but in every sector. So it's just understanding how to engage with tools like LinkedIn as well. How to also build a brand for yourself as well is going to be something very important, I think, as well in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do feel like there's always new platforms. I remember first, you had Instagram, and people were a little bit like, oh, well, how do we kind of interact with this? And obviously Twitter's been around for a while, so people were kind of getting used to Twitter, and then new ones come. You've got TikTok, there's always something new coming. And there's the AI side of it that is helping you to do things. And I feel like you said, there's lots of tools out there that we need to definitely become more familiar with and know how to use it for our clients. So yeah, I definitely agree with you in that. Definitely. It's interesting. I love the advent of the AI and stuff. So I think it's really interesting to see all these things coming up, and your chat GPTs, and some people hate it, some people love it. I'm just like, I think if there's anything that can help, and can help your clients, then why not look at it, So what key lessons would you say you've learned throughout your career?
I've got, probably two. I would definitely say understand the power of networking. That's something I'm really, really passionate about. And, reaching out to people, whether or not you have a connection with them or not, just, understanding a bit about the person you want to get to know, not just cold calling them and not having anything relevant to say, actually researching people before you meet with them, looking into the stuff that they're passionate about, because networking is also about having a conversation, not just a case of you're meeting someone to get something off them. It's also about having a conversation, seeing how you can both help each other. That's how I've viewed networking over the years. And I think it's something that we can all kind of take on board. And also not being afraid to talk about things that you're passionate about. I've been talking about DE&I for over 10 years now. I remember when I was a consultant at FTI, I was in the PRCA, I was in the CIPR newsletter that they were doing all the way back then, talking about DE&I. And I'm still doing the same thing today. I know it's kind of like a dwindling topic in some spaces, but for me, I don't think it's ever going to be something that I lose passion for. But I don't also want to be seen as a one-trick pony, because I feel that, you can talk about an issue so much and people think, oh, that's all you can talk about. There's definitely some value that I can add as well from a kind of PR landscape as well. Things that I've experienced, working within financial services, professional services, working in-house. I've learned so many things working in-house and coming back to agency. that, you know, I feel is also valuable to talk about to the next generation as well, or someone that's considering doing a similar move to myself. You know, I could talk about that as well with great confidence. So it's definitely, you know, taking lessons from each experience and using that to kind of help people as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And what advice would you give to young people of colour in particular, considering entering the industry?
I'll just say, don't let your colour hold you back, and don't let, you know, a bad experience with someone else that you've heard of make you disregard PR, because there's going to be horror stories in every industry. It's not just
industry. Absolutely.
Yeah. We look at banking, we look at medicine, we look at, you know, even sports, you know.
It's massive.
In sports, you know, people have experienced racism even within cricket. You know, we've seen the whole big case around some of the racism that's been experienced in cricket. So you can't get away from it, but don't let someone else's negative experience of an industry or someone's negative experience of a particular career make you kind of disregard the whole industry just because they've said, oh, I wouldn't go into this field because I've experienced this bad thing. So yeah, just have your own perception of what you want to do and just try and follow that path.
Absolutely agree with you. And I would also add to that actually it's important to recognize that when you come into the industry, there's different pockets. So you could be in financial, for example, you might have a completely different experience than you would if you was in maybe working in consumer or in fashion or whatever else. So there's different experiences. And again, it's just to, you know, keep moving until you find somewhere that fits and feels good, I always say.
Such a good point, because I actually started my career in consumer PR.
Okay.
That's where I started. I started my career in consumer PR. That's literally where I started. I did that for a bit, and I realized that, you know, doing the Taylor Bennett Foundation internship with Brunswick and, you know, understanding, you know, the corporate side of business, for me, I just found it a bit more interesting. So that's when I decided, you know what, I'm going to try and hone my career down the corporate side. And then I've done kind of corporate comms pretty much all my career. And now I've just slowly started to kind of specialize in financial services as well.
Right, which is a good point. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. So moving into our last section, which is mindset, one of my favorite areas to look at. So my first question for you is, how do you deal with the kind of internal mind war in terms of, you know, managing self-limiting beliefs? Because we all have our own self-limiting beliefs. So how do you manage that for yourself and in your career?
Internal mind war is a really interesting one because I think we all go through it. I think I go through it pretty much every week. You can have a bad experience at work one week, or, you know, something goes wrong on a client deliverable, and you start like talking to yourself as if you're not good enough. And it sometimes takes a lot of courage to pick yourself back up again, especially when you know that, you know, you could do better. So for me, it's just a case of always trying to stay positive. Even if I've received some feedback I'm not happy about, just taking it gracefully and, you know, taking a step back and thinking, okay, where did I go wrong? Where can I make improvements for the future? And also just having that inner self-belief of yourself, you know, patting yourself on the back. Because as you know, there's so many times in our industry, you know, you can get an amazing result, and you feel that, oh, you don't get the praise or the thanks that you would like. So it's just about having that internal self-belief and patting yourself on the back when you know you've done a good job. I think in PR, you need to really have thick skin as well, just to be ready for, you know, sometimes things can go wrong as well, and being ready for how to handle that as well, and how to also resurface after something goes wrong as well is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Definitely got to have thick skin for that, this industry for sure. Because even when you're dealing with, I always think about like in your early days when you're sort of trying to get in touch with journalists, you know, you've got some journalists who are lovely and some who are just so busy, they're like, no, wrong person, send you like a blunt email that can be like, oh, you know, take it personal. But it's like you've got to be able to separate it all, you know. So yeah, absolutely, I agree with you.
I remember starting my career trying to pitch in stories, and, you know, you've been given a long media list and you have to go through like 20, 30 people. And you probably get through to the last 3-4 people, and then they're really nice, but you've gone through all those rejections. By the time you get to someone, you're just like, oh my gosh, like you're really like thankful and grateful.
Exactly that. It is a lot of rejection. But yeah, also then it's like you said, it's building that thick skin and knowing actually it's nothing personal. You know, it's maybe just that the story is not right for them at this moment. They might pick up something, later on, or you might now be on their radar, so they might come back to something else. But sometimes at that moment, it feels like, oh my gosh, in that exact moment. So I get it. So looking back over your career journey, would you do it all over again?
I don't think I would do it all over again. I'll do certain elements of it over again. Because all over again, oh my gosh, that's a lot.
Emmanuel said it's a lot. Okay.
Yeah. What would I do?
Well, think about it. If you change your journey, you might not be where you are. So I always say, pretty much, your journey, everything you've gone through is taking you up to where you are now. Yeah,
and I feel like it's such a unique journey we all have that, it's just as you said, like the fact that I've gone through what I've gone through, all the experiences I've had, have got me to this stage right now, and I'm just taking it each day as it comes. But yeah, I'm very grateful for my journey, as I said earlier, and having all these allies along the way, people that have supported me and guided me. I'm very grateful for that as well.
Yeah. So it sounds like you do most of it, but maybe you might skip out a few bits here and there.
Definitely.
Okay. Fair. Okay.
The bad parts.
Say again?
The bad parts.
The bad parts, yeah. Skip out the bad parts, yeah, absolutely. So on to the last couple of questions. So this one always makes you laugh, depending on what response you get. So what's the best and the worst advice you've been given?
Well, the worst advice I was given was from a recruiter. He said, once you go in-house, it's going to be very hard for you to go back into agency, or once you specialize in a certain area of PR, you can't really switch, or you can't really move around. That was probably the worst advice I'd ever received.
That's a lie.
It was just so, it just wasn't true, because
it's not true. Because with PR, our skills are transferable. It really drives me mad when people do that. It's like, these are transferable skills. There's a certain method to our madness that we have to, apply to each different sector. But I don't believe in, pigeonholing people. No,
I don't believe in that at all as well. And the best advice is probably understanding where you want to be in your career is very important, and also ensuring that you build a piece of kind of not a piece of, but I'd say a bit of a personal brand for yourself. So when people look you up, someone said to me, "What's the first thing someone would see if they Googled your name?" And for me, that really struck me, because I was just like, I don't want anyone to see anything negative about me if they were to Google my name. And that's what's kind of really spurred me on to try to also build a personal brand for myself that is positive, that's also inspiring for the next generation. That's something that I've never really kind of stopped thinking about. So yeah, it's probably, to say, what would someone see if they Googled you? That's probably some of the best advice that I've received in my career.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. And my last question for you is, do you have any rules that you've implemented along your career journey?
Yeah.
To help you along your career journey, essentially?
Yeah, I think one of them is, when I first started my career, I found it very hard to switch off from work.
Okay.
I would go home and I'd be so stressed about work the next day that, I struggled to sleep. And this is even from when I was a junior, I'd be thinking about a press release that I'd have to send out at 7 a.m. in the morning, making sure that, I put everyone who needs to be on the distribution, ensuring that, I'd followed up with people. So I was very a bit of a stress head. I would always overthink stuff.
Yeah.
And as I've gone through my career, I've tried to just be a bit more relaxed. I've taken a step back to understand that at the end of the day, as long as I'm putting my best foot forward and I'm doing the best that I physically can and mentally, I shouldn't feel guilty about switching off after work. And that's something I've tried to implement. I would obviously, I'm not going to say that I don't log on in the evening sometimes, because I definitely do. That's just for me in terms of my organization, but I try to make sure that I switch off. I make time for myself as well, exercise when I need to exercise, and also take time for yourself, go on holiday, actually take a break.
Yeah.
As you know, a lot of PR people are guilty for not switching off when on holiday.
Yeah.
They're on holiday and they're still looking at their emails and still sending emails from holiday. Just learning to just take a step back and switch off is probably one of the key rules that I've tried to implement.
That's a good part. That's a really good one, to be fair. And I can completely relate to that, because I even remember in my early days, looking at emails at nighttime and even responding. I remember my boss saying to me, you don't have to respond to these at these times, like it's fine, because I felt like I wanted to make sure that everything was right, everything was correct. So I get that feeling of a bit of stress and worrying about something going out. I remember going on holiday to Florida and going back online to check that the story that I put out had gone out that was meant to go out on a particular website, and just being happy, like, oh yeah, it's definitely gone. Okay, yeah, fine, I can relax now. And I've got colleagues that I even deal with, like one of my clients that I met with recently, he was on holiday, but he wanted to link up, which was fine, but he was just completely on the phone, sending emails, and it was just like, what part is this for your holiday, So being able to switch off, I think, is definitely a thing for a lot of us comms people. It's a bit hard because we're a bit, workaholic-ish. And also, I feel like as people of colour, I feel like we add that extra pressure, which is we always know we've got to work 10 times harder. So it's like, actually, you ain't catching me slipping in any type of way, so it's a bit of that pressure too. So it's good to hear that you are managing that. And I've definitely gotten better with that over the years, but I am not perfect with that, for sure. Definitely not. But I hear that. But thank you so much, Emmanuel. It's been lovely. Thank you for sharing with us today. It's been great to have you on the podcast. Can you tell people how to connect with you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, thank you, Ebony, for the opportunity. I really, really appreciate it. If people want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Emmanuel Ofosu-Appiah. My name will hopefully be in the kind of podcast link as well, so you can just type my name into LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with anyone, offer any advice that anyone needs. Always open to supporting new talent enter the industry. Thank you for listening. Thank you again.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. It has been a pleasure, and I will be back with some more wonderful people from the world of comms very soon. So stay tuned, people. But until then, you take care and bye for now.